April 26th, 2026. London, 6:58 in the morning. A 31-year-old Kenyan man sits down for breakfast. 2 slices of bread, with honey, a cup of tea. 3 hours later, he does something that for 72 years was considered physiologically impossible. But here is the part that should keep every sports scientist awake tonight. We have no idea how he did it. The man who just ran the first legal sub 2-hour marathon in human history has 0 public laboratory data, no measured oxygen uptake, no published lactate curves, no threshold values, nothing. Now think about what that means for you. If you are listening to this with a Garmin on your wrist and 3 years of training history on your phone, you have more measured physiological data than the man who just broke 2 hours. I am Sebastian, and you are watching the Injury Breakdown. Today we are opening the case file on the most mysterious physiological performance of our generation. We are going to reconstruct what his body must be capable of, why this record may have just sealed the fate of a brand that started this entire revolution, and what every single one of you can take from his ghost dossier into your next training block. Stay with me, because what happened in London was not just a record. It was a haunting, and it was a lesson. The 2026 London Marathon started at 9:30 in the morning. Around 10 degrees Celsius, light winds, as close to perfect marathon conditions as any human has ever been handed. The lead pack went out hard. Sawe, Yomif Kejelcha of Ethiopia, Jacob Kiplimo of Uganda. They crossed 5 kilometers in 14 minutes, 14 seconds. By halfway, Sawe was at 1 hour and 29 seconds. World record pace. But here's the detail that matters. He was deliberately slower than Kelvin Kiptum's halfway split in Chicago 2023. He was holding back, on purpose. And here's where it gets interesting. Where most marathon record attempts fall apart in the second half, Sawe accelerated. He ran the first half in 60 minutes and 29 seconds. He ran the second half in 59 minutes and 1 second, a negative split, at world record pace. In a race nobody had ever finished under 2 hours legally. Now here is the lesson hidden inside that split. Most amateur marathoners do the exact opposite. They go out too hot. They hit the wall. They lose 10 or 15 minutes in the back half. Sawe just gave you the most expensive empirical proof in history that the negative split strategy works at every level. From your first marathon at 4:30 pace to a world record at 2:50 pace. The principle is identical. Around 30 kilometers, Sawe and Kejelcha surged together. From 30 to 40 kilometers, Sawe ran 27 minutes and 36 seconds. He is running this in the 3rd hour of a world record attempt. And then, the final 2.2 kilometers, 5 minutes, 51 seconds, the fastest finish ever recorded inside a record-eligible marathon. 1:59:30. Yomif Kejelcha, running his first marathon ever, finished 11 seconds back. Jacob Kiplimo crossed in 2 hours 28 seconds. 3 men under the previous world record in the same race. This had never happened. Not once. Not even close. Now let us talk about who this man actually is. The classic Kenyan champion archetype goes like this. You are spotted by a coach when you are 16. You run a junior world championship by 19. You debut on track. Sabastian Sawe fits none of this. He was born March 16, 1995, in a small village in Nandi County, raised mostly by his grandmother Esther on a farm. But here is the twist. He did not seriously start competitive running until he was already 20. He did not enter a professional training group until 2020. He started racing internationally at age 26. He has never competed in a track world championship. Now ask yourself this question. Tell me in the comments below. How does a man with that profile go from anonymous to world record holder in 4 marathons? Because that is the thing. Sawe has only run 4 marathons in his life. Valencia debut, 2024, 2 hours, 2 minutes, 5 seconds. London 2025, 2 hours, 2 minutes, 27 seconds. Berlin 2025, 2 hours, 2 minutes, 16 seconds. London 2026, 1 hour, 59 minutes, 30 seconds. 4 marathons, 4 wins. And his fourth is the one that breaks the most studied physiological barrier in sport. If you are a recreational runner who started in your 30s and feels left behind because you did not run in college, listen carefully. Sawe started at 20. He won his first international marathon at 29. The biological window for endurance is not what cultural narratives told you it was. His coach is Italian, Claudio Berardelli, a sports scientist from Brescia who has been embedded in Kenya's Rift Valley for over 20 years. His philosophy is the opposite of what you might expect. He says, and I quote, "The most important thing with this level of talent is not to complicate things." The first generation of Kenyan athletes I worked with basically coached me how to be a coach. Read that quote again. The Italian sports scientist says his job is to get out of the way. If you spend more time analyzing your training than executing it, that quote should sting a little. And that brings us to the haunting. Because Sabastian Sawe was not supposed to be the man who broke this barrier. The man who was supposed to do this was Kiptum. In October 2023, at age 23, Kiptum ran 2 hours and 35 seconds in Chicago. His coach revealed Kiptum was running 280 to 300 kilometers per week. On February 11th, 2024, Kelvin Kiptum and his coach lost control of their car near the village of Kaptagat. Both men died at the scene. Kiptum's world record had been ratified by World Athletics 5 days earlier. The first sub-2 marathon was always supposed to belong to him. 2 years later, a quiet Kenyan from a farming village finished what Kiptum could not. Sawe carried the torch nobody asked him to carry. Now let us open the body. To run 26.2 miles at 2 minutes 50 seconds per kilometer, your body must do 3 things at the absolute biological ceiling: a massive engine, a massive operating cylinder, and almost zero waste in how you move. The first factor: maximum oxygen uptake, the size of your engine. The general adult population sits between 35 and 45 milliliters per kilogram per minute. Elite male endurance athletes range between 70 and 85. Now here is where it gets useful for you. The 18 athletes Nike tested for their original Breaking 2 project averaged a maximum oxygen uptake of just 71. Surprisingly modest. The model says that to sustain 21.1 kilometers per hour for 2 hours, you only need around 67 milliliters per kilogram per minute at race pace, working at 90 to 94% of your maximum capacity. That number, 90 to 94%, is what should fundamentally change how you train. Most amateur runners chase maximum oxygen workouts. Hill repeats, maximum effort intervals. They obsess over the engine. But the data on elite marathoners says the engine is roughly equal across the world's best. What separates them is fractional utilization. How much of their engine they can actually use over 2 hours. And fractional utilization is built almost entirely at and below lactate threshold. Tempo runs. Marathon pace work. If your training plan skips threshold work, you are training the wrong system to run a fast marathon. Train threshold. Build durability. The engine is necessary, but the cylinder is what wins races. And Sabastian Sawe, his maximum oxygen uptake? We will never know. He could be a 78. He could be an 85. He could be the lowest oxygen uptake in marathon history if his economy is freakish enough. In elite marathoners, lactate threshold sits between 85 and 92% of maximum capacity. Amateur runners can hold their threshold for about an hour before everything collapses. Sawe held his for 2 hours and increased his pace at the end. This is where Kenyan physiology rewrites our textbooks. a landmark study compared African and Caucasian 10-kilometer runners. The result: no difference in maximum oxygen uptake, but significantly better running economy in the African athletes. Same engine, more efficient car, better fuel economy. Why? Studies on elite Kenyan runners show extraordinarily lean lower legs, calf circumferences averaging around 34.5 centimeters, long, slender Achilles tendons that act as biological springs, storing elastic energy on landing and releasing it on push-off. Their ground contact times sit between 160 and 180 milliseconds. Recreational runners spend 250 to 300 milliseconds on the ground per stride. Less time on the ground. More elastic return. Less metabolic cost. Multiplied by 22,000 strides over 42 kilometers. Here is the practical takeaway. You cannot change your bone structure, but you can change 3 things. Number 1, shoe weight. Every 100 grams added to a shoe increases oxygen cost by approximately 1%. Number 2, cadence. When fatigue hits and your cadence drops below 170 steps per minute, you start overstriding, your braking forces increase, and your metabolic cost rockets. Cadence work is free. Number 3, plyometrics. Jumping rope, bounding, hopping drills 2 times per week have been shown in peer-reviewed studies to improve running economy by 3 to 8%, without any change in maximum oxygen uptake. Most amateur runners completely skip this work. It is one of the most underutilized tools in distance training. But there is a final factor, and this one is technological. For decades, a sub-2-hour marathon was the holy grail, the Mount Everest of endurance sport. In 2016, at the Rio Olympics, the top 3 finishers in the men's marathon all wore prototypes of the Nike Vaporfly 4%. The name came from a study showing the shoe reduced energetic cost of running by approximately 4%. Nike then launched Breaking 2. In Monza, Italy, on May 6, 2017, Eliud Kipchoge ran 2 hours and 25 seconds, just barely outside. And here is a fact that stops you cold. May 6, 2017. 63 years to the day from Roger Bannister's first sub-4-minute mile in Oxford on May 6, 1954. 2019, Vienna. Kipchoge ran 1:59:40.2, the first human under 2 hours. But it was not a real race. Rotating pacers, a laser car, closed course. World Athletics refused to ratify it until April 26, 2026, when the first legal sub-2-hour marathon in history finally happened. Sawe was not wearing Nike. He was wearing the Adidas Adios Pro Evo 3. 97 grams, roughly half the weight of Nike's flagship Alphafly 3. The technology Nike spent a decade developing is now available in some form to every amateur runner with $300 to spend. Studies are clear. Super shoes deliver between 2 and 4% improvement in running economy. If you race marathons and your goal time matters to you, racing in a carbon-plated shoe is no longer optional. The playing field has been leveled, but only for those who use the level field. Sawe wore Adidas. Kejelcha wore Adidas. Kiplimo wore Adidas. Tig Stasefa, who broke the women's only world record in the same race, wore Adidas. The brand that started this entire technological arms race got beaten to the legal sub-2-hour barrier by its biggest rival. And here is the most ironic moment of the entire weekend. Nike, the day of the record, posted on Instagram, and I quote, "The clock has been reset. There is no finish line. Today we stand in awe of human potential redefined. Congratulations to Sabastian Sawe." Nike, the company that invented the dream of Sub-2, congratulating an Adidas athlete on accomplishing it. But the technology gives you 4%. The economy gives you another 5 to 7%. Neither of those can build a furnace. The furnace was built by something old school. In the final 6 weeks before London, Sabastian Sawe averaged over 200 kilometers per week. His peak week reached 241 kilometers, 150 miles in 7 days. To put that in context, the average elite Kenyan marathoner peaks between 180 and 220. Kelvin Kiptum, the man Sawe replaced in history, was reportedly running 280 to 300 kilometers per week. And here's the conversation almost no running channel is willing to have. A 2025 paper published in the journal Current Biology established that human beings have a metabolic ceiling. Across multi-week periods, the body cannot sustain more than approximately 2.5 times basal metabolic rate. Anything above that, and the body starts shutting down maintenance functions. The immune system, reproductive hormones, tissue repair. This is the cliff Kelvin Kiptum was running on. For amateur runners, the metabolic ceiling explains something nobody talks about openly. When you double your weekly mileage in 3 months trying to qualify for Boston, the injuries you get are not random. Stress fractures, tendinopathies, recurrent illness. These are signs your body crossed a metabolic line. The ceiling exists for everybody. The only difference is where it sits. So what did we just witness on April 26, 2026? A quiet Kenyan farmer's grandson, who started running competitively at 20, who has never been measured in a sports science laboratory, eating bread and honey for breakfast, then breaking the most prophesied physiological barrier in sport, in shoes made by the company that lost the technological war they themselves started. On a course where the ghost of a dead 24-year-old hung over every kilometer. Records do not fall to the most measured. They fall to the ones who keep showing up. The ones whose coaches stop trying to control what cannot be controlled. The ones who run with a torch nobody asked them to carry. And here's what Sabastian Sawe leaves on your training plan tomorrow. Train threshold, not just maximum oxygen. Train your cadence. Add plyometrics 2 times per week. Race in carbon-plated shoes if your goal time matters. Negative split your long runs. And respect the metabolic ceiling. Your body is keeping a balance sheet you cannot see. I am Sebastian, and this has been the Injury Breakdown. If this case file fascinated you, I have one you cannot miss. What if today Pogacar, 4-time Tour de France winner, 12 monument victories, and an estimated maximum oxygen uptake of 96, stepped off the bike and ran a marathon tomorrow? Would he break the world record? Would he even finish clean? In that episode, I break down the full physiological case. The extraordinary engine Pogacar carries. The brutal science of running economy. What happens to elite cyclists when they try to run? And 3 data-driven time predictions that will change how you think about athletic greatness. The link is on screen now. Stay healthy, stay curious,